And they were like, okay, raise your hand if you've converted tonight.
They're actively against me.
You think in your head, what is this all for?
It was just so strange.
There's coming a day when people from every possible people group on the face of the planet are going to be before the Lord.
I just remember looking around and being like, wow, they've just got such a hold of these people.
At Bridgend Life Center, we're going to blow the roof off the place.
They were like, okay, raise your hand if you're going to join our religion.
I was very upset, very angry by it.
God has always had a plan.
It's just misinformation. It goes against my beliefs as a teacher and my role as a teacher.
This is Bridgend. It's not far from Cardiff in Wales. It's a quiet place. Apart from some pretty nice beaches, there's not a lot that it's known for. But it's my home. My name is Anwen, and I grew up and went to school in Bridgend. And this is a story about something that happened here that not a lot of people know about. Bridgend is about as normal as anywhere can be. But I've been investigating how an American evangelical church brought over their conservative values to this town's schools and trying to figure out why, when people complained, nothing was done. And it all started with a series of tragedies.
There's been another suspected suicide in South Wales. The latest involves a 28-year-old man. Since the beginning of last year, 22 young people from Bridgend County are now thought to have taken their life.
In 2007, Bridgend was getting lots of attention. In a 2-year period, at least 20 young people were recorded as taking their own lives. Bridgend was labelled the suicide capital of Britain. The media speculated that the deaths were caused by a cult or an internet gang. But nobody was ever able to explain why this happened, and instead, a community was left grieving and looking for answers. This is Coleman, and it's about 5 minutes away from my school. It was just down that road there, and loads of my friends lived on this street or in this area. But in 2007, just on the other side of this grass is where they found a 16-year-old girl who had taken her own life. And coming back here just shows how close these deaths were to the community. I was only 7 at the time of the suicides, so I can't really remember what it was like here. Hello? But my dad was a teacher in a Bridgend school at the time, and he remembers the panic.
Bridgend really started to have a bit of a reputation, and you know, as soon as you met anybody and you said you worked in Bridgend, oh right, yeah, and they made the emotional link. But yeah, it was a really worrying time.
So how were the schools, responding to this, and what action did they kind of take?
We were open to help, and we did reach out to external agencies and any group that really could offer some support, helplines, and charities that could offer emotional support. We were well open to help from anywhere, really.
Little did we know in 2008, when we were introduced to the possibility of ministry and the need for ministry in Wales.
That's Fenn, a Christian pastor from Louisiana in the USA. And since 2008, his church has been visiting Bridgend schools every year.
What this would develop into.
We'll get back to him later. Now you need to know that my school was one of the ones his church visited. I was 11 years old when they first visited my school, and they were the first Americans I'd ever met. I remember they all walked into our assembly with matching red polos on, carrying guitars, and I immediately assumed they were famous.
At Bridgend Life Center, we're going to blow the roof off the place. We're going to have a party.
They would perform concerts for us and bring in entertainers like bodybuilders and football freestylers. I even remember asking one of them for their autograph. But not everyone has the same positive memories of the visit. This is Will. He went to a school 5 minutes down the road from mine. The First West Baptist Church visited his school too.
I remember coming into my religious class. They didn't really say much then. As the years went on, it progressed into us asking more questions towards them. And that's like when the issues started to happen, because it was us asking them what they thought about equal rights and like gay marriage. And that's when they came back saying, we don't stand by this, we don't believe that gay people should get married. It's basically saying, I should be above you, to me. I was very sure of myself at the time when these Christians were coming in. That's why I started to actively challenge them and like thought, this isn't for me, because they're not representing me. They're actively against me.
The thing is, Will actually did complain about the comments to his head of year.
It was a big challenge for me. I was very upset, very angry by it, and there was an entire assembly about it then the next day, where my head of year, he sat my entire year group down and then went through this like big, not uproar, but like very challenging talk about they're never going to come back, we're not going to do this, we are not these people, we are not represented by these people, and we are like an equal school. But they still showed up the next year. We were still forced to go through those lessons. At the end of the day, if you're not going to fulfill those promises that you make, it is just a lie, isn't it?
They'd say that they came over to help people, but do you think that really was the case? Do you think that they did help?
No. I think, if anything, they put me more into a box. They definitely pushed queer people further back into like the closet by saying things like that and openly saying that we shouldn't have the same rights. So that's definitely not going to help suicide prevention, is it?
This is Kate. She went to the same school as Will and remembers the same comments about gay marriage. She still lives in Bridgend and runs a doggy daycare with her girlfriend. She also remembers the church attempting to convert children in one of their after-school concerts.
They had their annual show in the pavilion. The school, like kids from the schools of different schools would come down, pay to go and see this show. That you kind of know that you know what they're about. You know that you're kind of in for some Bible verses and some of, like we said, the weightlifters, just the singing. It's a good night. But also with some Bible verses. So you kind of just chill out for those bits, I suppose, if you're not religious. But yeah, then come towards the end of the night, I remember sitting there and they were like, okay, everyone close your eyes. Let's all be honest, like let's everyone close our eyes. And I knew I wasn't going to. And they were like, okay, raise your hand if you've converted tonight. You're going to join our religion. And I just remember looking around and being like, wow, like they've just got such a hold of these people, because obviously so many people were, like I said, converting or whatever. You'd kind of be like, well, do you not now accept me? It was just so strange, so strange.
After hearing these stories, I wanted to find out more about the First West Baptist Church.
Remember Mark Fenn? Turns out his church has some pretty strong opinions about things like gay rights and abortion.
Hundreds of people from various organizations gathered at First West Church in West Monroe for the Louisiana Life March this afternoon.
It only takes a few seconds on the church's website to see what they believe in.
See here, it says Christians should oppose all forms of sexual immorality, including homosexuality.
And there's also loads of clips on the websites from the church's sermons.
Sexual immorality is so common, let me just make it simple for you. Husbands and wife, this is your lane. Drive it however you want to. This is your lane. You have sexual relations with her, and you have sexual relations with him.
But how did this church find its way into my hometown?
The First West Baptist Church told us that when they heard about the suicides in Bridgend, they reached out to Welsh church groups to offer help. Together, they formed the Bridgend, Louisiana Partnership. They say they were invited into schools after the success of their first visits. Their idea was to run cultural days that would give children positive experiences. The partnership continued every year until 2018, when they were forced to stop because of COVID.
But it wasn't just students who felt uncomfortable and complained. Teachers did too. Dr. Rathke was a biology teacher at my school and someone I know well.
Hello. Hello, you okay? Yes, how are you? Yeah, good, thank you.
The church bit was very sort of low key. I wasn't really aware of, that part. It was just, for me, in my head, they were just a load of teachers that did belong to a church, obviously, were coming over, and they were just gonna, talk to us about how their lives were over there.
So did they come into your lessons in those kind of early years?
Yeah, in the first few years, they would always come into one of my lessons. Usually they'd come into a science lesson. I think first of all, they started talking about how their school was and, sort of, it's quite gentle approach. But then they would go into obviously why they thought Darwin and, certain science has been sort of a lie, basically,
In Dr. Rathke's biology lessons, the church taught creationism. Those who believe in creationism say the world was created by a God in 7 days and reject Darwin's theory of evolution.
I had actually asked that they didn't come into my classroom because it made me feel quite uneasy. The last time that there was a teacher of science apparently, and he would say, "This is what I teach to my children." He kind of looked at me and he said, "Oh, miss, do you have anything to say?" As if kind of goading, and then like the kids looked at me like I, should be saying something. And I said, "Well, yeah," I said, "I do have a problem with actually what you're saying." Then he started backing out and the other people said, "Oh, we've got to go to a different class now, we've got to go." It's just misinformation, and I'm a teacher and I'm there to educate my pupils, and whatever beliefs I have, that has no relevance on what I have to teach in the science curriculum. So it goes against my beliefs as a teacher and my role as a teacher.
Teaching creationism in science lessons is actually banned in all English schools, and while it's a controversial topic in Wales, the devolved government is yet to take a stance. But there are strict rules in Wales to protect pupils against homophobia. The 2010 Equalities Act, which is a law, says that sexuality is a protected characteristic. The schools also say in their own safeguarding policies that all children will be treated fairly, equally and with respect. They say that senior members of staff will challenge and record all incidences of homophobia.
So it seems that Will did the right thing. He complained to his teachers, but still the visits continued.
I asked the school why they didn't stop the visits even after the complaint. Will and Kate told us that they held an assembly to discuss the issue. The school told us they have no record of any complaints ever being made. The other school, the one that Dr. Rathke and I were at, did not reply to my email at all. The First West Baptist Church told us that homosexuality was never one of our teaching topics in the schools. If that subject was addressed at all, it was strictly in response to a direct question from one of the students and was answered with the permission of the teacher. They say the answer from one of our team would have been given in kindness, respect and honesty from a biblical perspective. They also say that in no way was a gay student ever demeaned and that holding a different worldview does not qualify as homophobic.
But the thing is, we now know that there were visits to 20 other schools in Bridgend, and they weren't just limited to schools. They were in churches, youth groups and old people's homes.
We were able to expose about 12,000 people to the gospel of Jesus Christ, saw over 200 decisions for Christ. That was just explosive growth.
That's 12,000 people across South Wales who could have heard messages similar to Will, Kate and Dr. Rathke.
The First West Baptist Church came to this normal town, my home, to help a vulnerable community that was looking for answers. But from the people we've spoken to, that definitely wasn't the case. For them, it did anything but help. And when they complained, they weren't listened to. Which begs the question of how safe are school children in Bridgend from this happening again?
Knowing that they have these views and they just keep coming back every year and no one's stopped them yet is quite scary.
It shouldn't be a sort of a religious pilgrimage to come over from America. There's nothing here. There should be more youth clubs and things like that, and rather than preaching a Christian message.
And I do think schools have a responsibility to ensure that they are up front with them when they come in. Ultimately, as a teacher, you need to be looking at, protecting your pupils.